All right, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive, where we grab your stack of information and really try to cut straight to the core insights.
Yeah, it's about getting you informed fast. With the key facts, maybe a few surprises too.
And today, we're taking a deep dive based on a specific report. This one, it zooms right in on the residential real estate market in India.
That's right. But with a real sharp focus on Gurugram, specifically covering the second quarter of 2024, so April through June.
Okay, so our mission here is basically to guide you through this data. We want to pull out the main trends, understand the forces at play.
Look at the specific details shaping the Gurugram market during that period. Yeah. And figure out what it all means, for anyone looking at property there.
Exactly. So the report kicks off by setting the broader scene, the whole Indian residential market first.
It does. It mentions the market is in its third straight year of what it calls a robust bull run.
Third year. Okay, that sounds like some serious momentum. But it also talks about signs of stabilization showing up nationally in Q2.
Yet, signs of things may be cooling off just a bit or finding a level. You see it in two main ways. Supply, so new homes coming online, is increasing steadily.
Okay.
And demand growth, while still positive, is becoming a bit more measured. Not those huge surges we saw maybe earlier.
Right. But what's interesting, and the report points this out, is that even with the Reserve Bank of India keeping the repo rate steady for the 8th time.
Which normally means borrowing costs aren't getting any cheaper.
Exactly. Despite that, national housing demand still grew.
Yeah, that does suggest some underlying strength, doesn't it? Maybe incomes are rising or people just feel confident enough to buy.
Could be.
The report does float the idea of a future repo rate cut, if inflation stays in check and the economy looks good.
And if that happens?
Well, that could give things another nudge, especially, you'd think, for folks looking at more affordable housing options.
Speaking of which, affordable housing, the government's national focus is mentioned. That huge plan, what is it, 30 million new homes?
30 million.
Yeah.
It's a massive target. But the report sees this as something that will really energize the market nationally and, importantly, broaden the base of potential homeowners. It's a big long-term factor to watch.
Okay, so let's get those national Q2 numbers on the table, just for context, before we really hone in on Gurugram. Across India, demand-like search activity was up 4.6% quarter on quarter.
Right. Supply increased a bit less, 3.5% QQ.
Yeah.
And average rates went up 4% QQ. Kind of steady growth overall.
Okay, now compare that to Gurugram. This is where it gets wild, apparently.
It really is a standout. Gurugram's demand didn't just edge up 4.6%. It rocketed up by 19.6% in just one quarter.
19.6. That's almost 5 times the national average.
Exactly. And prices, they followed suit. Not a 4% rise like nationally, but a jump of 6.8% QQ in Gurugram.
Wow. So easily one of the hottest markets in the country during that period for both demand and price hikes.
Absolutely. Among the highest across all the top metros tracked. The report does mention Delhi was strong too, up 17% demand, and Noida at 16.4%. So the north was generally buzzing, but Gurugram led the pack.
Okay. Any exceptions nationally?
Bengaluru was one. It actually saw an 8% decline in demand. The report links that mainly to slower activity in its lower mid-price segments.
Interesting. But for most places, including Gurugram, the trend was towards larger homes.
Yeah, definitely. A general preference across cities for 2 BHK and 3 BHK units. And over half, 52% nationally, were searching for properties bigger than 1,250 square feet. People want space.
All right, let's make the shift then. Deep dive into Gurugram proper. We've got that headline number, a massive 19.6% quarterly surge in demand.
And the flip side, crucially, is that supply just didn't keep up. Listings grew, yes, but only by a much more modest 5.3% QOQ.
Okay, so it's that classic story, isn't it? Demand just swamps supply.
And prices have nowhere to go but up. That mismatch is what fuels that significant 6.8% QOQ price surge. Pure economics.
What reasons does the report give for Gurugram being such an outlier? Why so strong?
It points to a combination of things. Its strategic location, be right next to Delhi.
Right.
Then there's the heavy presence of multinational corporations, big IT companies.
Lots of high-paying jobs.
Exactly. And it's a major industrial hub, too. That mix creates this, unique economic engine. It pulls in a workforce with serious spending power, which drives that demand for bigger, pricier homes that really define the Gurugram market.
And infrastructure is playing a huge role too, right? The report mentions the Dwarka Expressway completion, calls it a key milestone.
Oh, absolutely key. Its main impact is creating a much faster link to Delhi. This is especially big for the newer sectors of Gurugram, the ones further out west.
Ah, so because prices in the older core areas of Gurugram are already, sky high.
Yeah, eye-watering in some places.
These newly connected areas along the expressway are becoming the hotspots. That's where the demand is heading.
It's a perfect example of infrastructure literally redrawing the map of market activity. The report actually forecasts that prices along the Dwarka Expressway itself are likely to jump another 10 to 15%.
Just in the next few months?
In the coming months, yeah, now that it's fully up and running.
Wow, 10, 15% just from that. And there was another bit of news mention, something about a global city project.
Yeah, that got its environmental clearance from the ministry.
Yeah.
Another huge long-term development getting the green light. These big projects just keep reinforcing that confidence in Gurugram's future growth.
Okay, let's dig into the specifics then. What exactly are buyers looking for in Gurugram, and what's actually available? The demand and supply preferences.
The data paints a really clear picture. If you look at demand by BHK, the number of bedrooms, 3 BHKs, are totally dominant. They accounted for 60% of all searches in Q2.
60%, that's up from Q1 too, wasn't it?
It was, up from 54%, and the next biggest chunk was 3-plus BHK units at 24%. So yeah, bigger homes are definitely what people want.
And the size data confirms that preference for space.
Absolutely. 44% of demand was for homes between 1,250 and 2,000 square feet. Another 33% wanted even bigger places between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet.
So add that up, that's what, 77%? A huge majority looking for properties over 1,250 square feet.
Massive. Tells you a lot about the typical buyer. And then look at the price point they're searching in. Demand by REIT per square foot. It's overwhelmingly skewed towards the high end.
How high?
91%. 91% of total demand share was for properties priced above 10,000 rupees per square foot.
91%. That's not just a preference. That basically is the market, isn't it? Focused almost entirely on luxury and high-end homes.
Pretty much, yeah. And the supply side generally mirrors this. 3 BHKs are the most listed type. 37% of supply. Almost half the supply, 49%, is over 1,250 CSKH feet, and 88% of listed properties are priced above that 10,000 PS mark.
So developers are largely offering what the market wants, at least at these higher price points.
Seems that way, yes.
Okay, let's zero in on that price story then, because it feels central to Gurugram. Prices are clearly on a strong upward path, quarter on quarter and year on year.
Definitely. And you can see which types are leading the charge. The biggest quarterly jump was for 3-plus BHK units, up 7.2%.
Okay.
But the year-on-year growth is where it's really dramatic, especially for slightly smaller but still large units. Standard 3 BHKs saw average rates jump 30.9% compared to the previous year.
30% in 1 year.
And 2 BHKs were up 29.1% year-on-year. Really aggressive growth for those popular configurations. It shows just how intense the competition is for those specific types of homes.
And looking longer term, the report mentioned a truly staggering figure, the average price across all residential property in Gurugram.
Yeah, this one's pretty striking. It's surged by more than 50% in just the last 2 years.
50% since Q2 2022.
That's right. Went from around 8,169 rupees per square foot in Q2 2022 up to 12,686 in Q2 2024.
That is incredible appreciation. Is it just speculation driving that?
The report links it more to fundamentals, the city's ongoing economic growth, those big infrastructure projects like the Expressway. It feels like growth backed by real development.
Got it. The report also breaks down average rates by property type, right?
It does. Gives a sense of the different segments. Builder floors are averaging around 11,000 PSF. Multi-story apartments slightly less at 10,700. Standalone residential houses are higher, 13,900 PSF. And then villas, the really luxury end, are way up at 23,600 PSF.
Quite a range. And by BHK size.
Yeah, that breakdown is revealing too. Right. 1 BHK averages about 8,200 PSF. 2 BHK hits 10,000 PSF, 3 BHK is 12,000 PSF, and 3-plus BHK averages 15,200 PS.
Okay, so there's a huge gap between, say, a 1 BHK and a 3-plus BHK in terms of cost per square foot, like almost double.
Roughly, yeah. The report explicitly notes that significant disparity. It really underlines the market segmentation based on size and luxury level.
Definitely. Now, there was a really interesting point about under construction versus ready-to-move properties.
Ah, yes. This was one of the most surprising findings, I think. In Q2, the ready-to-move segment finished homes actually saw its average price decline quarter on quarter by 5.3%.
Wait, prices for finished homes dropped? But you just said overall prices surged 6.8%. How does that work?
Exactly. Tells you where all the heat was. Because in contrast, the under construction UC segment saw prices grow massively, up 20.2% quarter on quarter.
20% growth for unfinished homes, while finished ones fell.
Correct. This crazy surge in UC prices means that in Gurugram, like in many other big cities now apparently,
Yeah.
under construction properties are actually more expensive per square foot than ready-to-move-in ones.
So people are paying more for something they can't even live in yet. Why? What's the logic there?
The report suggests a few key drivers. Buyers are betting on getting a better return on investment, the price going up even more by the time it's finished.
Okay, future value potential.
Right. Plus, developers often offer more flexible payment plans for UC projects, which can make the initial purchase feel more manageable. And, maybe critically, newer UC projects often boast better construction tech, newer designs, more modern amenities.
So it's a mix of investment expectation, payment flexibility, and getting the newest stuff.
Pretty much. Buyers seem willing to trade immediate occupancy for those factors. And the supply numbers reflect this shift too. Ready-to-move supply only increased slightly, 1.9% QOQ. But under construction supply jumped up 13.0% QOQ. Developers are definitely responding to where the demand is strongest.
Fascinating. It really shows the confidence buyers have in Gurugram's future price trajectory.
It absolutely does.
So with all this intense activity, where is it actually happening? Which parts of Gurugram are the hotspots?
Well, the demand isn't just everywhere. It's very concentrated in specific zones, mostly along those key residential corridors, or what they call transit-oriented development, TOD corridors, areas built around good public transport links.
And the main ones mentioned were Dwarka Expressway, again.
Yep. Dwarka Expressway, Golf Course Extension Road, the area called New Gurugram, and Sona Road. Those are the big ones.
And the attraction is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the report says it's that combination. Better connections to Delhi, easy access to the metro system, and being close to where the big job centers are. It's location, connectivity, convenience, the classic real estate drivers.
And the report lists specific micro-markets within these corridors, like the actual neighborhood names.
It does, yeah. In the tables, you see names like Golf Course Extension, New Gurgaon itself, Dwarka Expressway locales, parts of central Gurgaon, Sona Road areas popping up consistently as the top spots for both demand and supply. Shows you exactly where the action is concentrated.
These are the engines driving the market right now.
Correct.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. The national backdrop, Gurugram's really exceptional growth, what buyers want, the crazy price dynamics, where the hot spots are. Let's try and pull it all together. What does this report really tell you, the listener, about the Gurugram market right now?
I think the main takeaway is that if you're looking at Gurugram, you're seeing an incredibly strong, fast-moving market. The growth isn't random. It's clearly tied to those specific factors, the economy there, the jobs, the improving infrastructure like the expressway.
And the demand is overwhelmingly for larger, more expensive properties. That 91% figure for searches above 10,000 PS really sticks out.
It does, and that leads to the next point, affordability. With prices jumping over 50% in 2 years and those huge year-on-year gains for 2 and 3 BHKs, well, affordability is becoming a major hurdle. As the report itself notes, this is increasingly a market catering to the higher income brackets.
Definitely. Another key insight seems to be how directly infrastructure impacts things. That shift in demand towards newer areas along the Dwarka Expressway.
Exactly. It shows you very clearly, follow the new roads, follow the transport links if you want to understand where future growth and activity might concentrate.
Yeah.
Infrastructure is actively shaping the hotspots.
And finally, that whole under construction versus ready-to-move dynamic is critical to understand, isn't it? The fact that UC prices surged while RM prices dipped.
Yeah. It's counterintuitive maybe,
Yeah.
but it tells you a lot about current buyer priorities in Gurugram. That focus on future ROI, payment flexibility, and the appeal of brand new construction is driving the market's price momentum right now. It's a key trend to grasp if you're considering buying.
Gives you a lot to chew on about buyer psychology there.
For sure.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, something maybe to mull over. We've seen how Gurugram's market is just overwhelmingly driven by this demand for luxury, for high-priced, large property.
Right, that's the dominant theme.
But then you contrast that with what we talked about right at the start, the national government's big push for affordable housing, that plan for 30 million new affordable homes across India.
Yeah, two very different pictures there.
So the question is, how does Gurugram's trajectory, so focused on the upscale end, potentially align with, or maybe even diverge from, those national policy goals aimed at broader housing affordability in the future? It feels like a potential tension point, doesn't it?
It really does. Something interesting to watch unfold as both the market and national policies evolve in the coming years. A definite point to consider.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into this report on the Gurugram residential market for Q2 2024.
Hopefully that's giving you a clearer, maybe more insightful picture of the key trends and what's really driving things there.
As always, we encourage you to keep digging into the data, keep exploring the factors shaping these complex markets. There's always more beneath the surface.
Until next time.